Prabir, I'm going to slightly digress from the theme of this conversation, and I think it's important to bring that conversation into this one as well. Is a lot of people today are going through force shifts as well, and when
Yeah.
they come back and try to find place for themselves, as you rightly pointed out, organizations are not as open. There is also a shift that is happening at an industry level where organizations have started seeing roles very differently, and this is as a result of AI, new tech. I
Yeah.
mean, the way employment is being seen as well. And then there is the entire people, where people are also looking at opportunities very differently, more transactional in nature, if I can call that.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for organizations to improve their talent attraction strategy? Because today we are looking at an as a person who wants to come and work for you, but may or may not really have the same amount of loyalty, if I can say, quote unquote, that we probably would have seen 10 years ago in an individual.
So let me make some caveats before I respond, right? Because I
Sure,
have very strong points of view, and no one needs to agree.
sure.
First of all, I've talked about this many times. Loyalty cannot be measured in years in a company.
Mm,
I've seen companies, and I now advise many companies where, oh, he's been there 30 years. Actually,
mm,
some of them should have been sacked 20 years ago. They don't deserve to
mm,
be there
mm,
at the salary, at the level at which they are, very honestly. But
mm,
it's loyalty. They manage the political system. It could be,
mm,
and this
mm,
could apply even to MNCs. I'm not excluding MNCs, right? It's a
mm,
political game. You've survived, you caught on to the right guys, they grew, you grew, and all. Because
mm,
humans behave in that way. Loyalty to me is more about impact. At least that's the way I have told myself about loyalty. If I stay with a company 3 years, but I change the orbit, I do something which someone could take 10 years to do, I've been more than loyal to that company. Because people who've
sure.
been there 10 years have actually just potted around, right?
Mm,
That is not
mm,
loyalty.
mm,
But it's an inconvenient truth for many uh, office holders and
mm,
companies to absorb,
mm,
right? But this is the
mm,
bitter truth. So that's the first part. The second part that you raised about, job switches. See, there was a time, I always talk about careers or whatever. It was monogamous once upon a time, not because they did not want to do different jobs, maybe, a generation earlier, right? But they want the jobs. Where would they go? My father joined the IPS. He spent his lifetime in the IPS, right? Where would he go? You didn't have, the kind of opportunities that are there. Then there was maybe my generation that people practice what I called, polygamy. You
mm,
know, you went to one, then you went to the other, you went to the third, and therefore we kind of looked at different experiences because
mm,
there were good jobs. Now the new generation actually practices what I call corporate polyandry,
mm.
the so-called gig world. I
True.
mean, today I work with 20 clients at the same time, and I like that space. It intellectually challenges me. It is boring to work for the same company, same people for 25 years. It's not me. So
Mm,
the
mm,
point is, you must look at career in the context, therefore, of the individual.
mm,
Each person has to decide what is his or her definition of career. I don't think I'm
mm,
preaching that this is right or wrong, but I'm saying there's a
mm,
way of looking at it. Similarly, for organizations, your
mm,
loyalty has to be in the context of what is talent. And the definition of talent, I've talked endlessly in the last 20 years, is a moving definition. What is
true.
talent today may not be talent 5 years later. So you must understand and define what is the relevant talent. Maybe, a grinder and a miller and a mason is the operating talent for a company, and maybe in
True.
another company you need all the strategic minds. Does it make the other irrelevant talent? It's no. So you define your talent very strategically. Once you're clear about it, you must understand what appeals to this talent. The problem with the question that you have raised, which I respect, and which a lot of people, everyone believes talent is this high MBA talent, and which has, it's all nonsense actually, right? People don't, and CHROs don't think about it. No one steps back. Everyone is doing some little potting around, some recast, some social media post. But the strategic question is, what is meaningful talent for you? And if you visualize the next 5 years, anyone who says I'm visualizing a 30-year career is talking bullshit. So when
Mm.
people reach out to me, Prabir, help us search out this candidate and that candidate, and we want someone in the 40 to 45, they'll say, I said, what changes if the guy's 46 or 50?
Correct.
You
Exactly.
know, meet a 35-year-old even today. No succession depth. I said, you have no guarantee this guy will stay with you 2 years from now. So,
True. True.
all of it is very mediocre gibberish, which I hear,
Mm.
from leaders in companies, and that
Mm.
has to change.
Mm.
So loyalty will be to make whatever tenure works win-win matter. It could be
Matters. Yeah.
2 years, it could be 5 years. It is a choice on both sides. But does the company get the best in those 2 years? And does the organization also feel I got two of the best learning years or the best culturally, reinvigorating experience? So you have to decide what works. The last point I want to make it is the oversimplification of, oh, Gen Z is different from Gen Y and millennials. I don't believe that nonsense.
No.
It is again trite. HR conference after conference talks about this nonsense. Tell me, you know, uh, if my son is a millennial who is Bombay raised, is he exactly similar to a guy who is a millennial from Jhumri Tilaiya? Is he exactly similar to someone in New York? I mean, let's not also oversimplify. It's like the diversity inclusion nonsense which happens. I mean, don't step back. Everyone is trying to just make their little fads, and anyone who gains in that. So the question is, you must finally atomize experiences. What do you do which makes sense for this talent? And what works for Prabir may not work for Gopal. And companies cannot say, oh, my policy does not allow it. And that's why in my HR life, anything which was more than one page of an HR policy was out of the window. I never
Mm.
even called it HR policy. I used to call it enablers, right? So this entire policy regime, control, compliance is not me. I never practiced it. I don't believe in it. And I
Mm.
think it doesn't matter how many people. I'm not saying the CHRO has to do, or CEO has to do it for 50,000 people, but your culture and your ecosystem design has to be such that there is scope for people to atomize their experience, and
Mm.
therefore it makes sense for me to continue
Mm.
working in that company. Nor, all these golden handcuffs, etc., work. Even if they are spending the time that they have to spend, it does not mean they're giving their best to the company. So it's a very bold and not necessarily a popular response, but that's the way I think, that's the way I feel.
Sure. Sure. Really appreciate that.